If you ask military history enthusiasts what the single deadliest unit of the ancient world was, you'll start a fight. The reality of battlefield tactics is much less forgiving. If you rely entirely on one overpowered, highly specialized force, a smart opponent will simply outmaneuver it. Alexander the Great understood this. Compromises. You cannot have maximum defense and maximum mobility in the exact same soldier. To solve this, Alexander perfected a system known as the hammer and anvil. The anvil is a massive infantry block that intentionally sacrifices almost all mobility to provide unbreakable holding power. The hammer strips away heavy defense in favor of specialized rapid strike capabilities. We're going to evaluate Alexander's top 5 elite units as a decisional matrix of tactical trade-offs, measuring exactly how he balanced heavy infantry holding forces against mobile strike forces. To understand the anvil, you have to picture the massive scale of ancient battlefields, wide plains where tens of thousands of men clashed at once. The absolute backbone of Alexander's army was the Macedonian phalanx. Committing to this formation meant packing troops shoulder to shoulder, with each man wielding a massive 18-foot pike. Locked tightly together, this creates a literal wall of wood and iron that shuts down any frontal assault. The enemy is effectively pinned in place. The trade-off for this defensive power is steep. 18-foot pikes are incredibly unwieldy, stripping away the formation's maneuverability and leaving the outer flanks completely exposed to a sudden attack. If that slow, rigid line panics and cracks under pressure, the entire army falls apart. You need an anchor to keep it locked down. Alexander used the silver shields. These were his most experienced veterans, clearly identified by the huge silver shields they carried. They provided an unbreakable core. When younger recruits wavered, the silver shields held their ground, physically and psychologically stabilizing the main infantry line. But veterans are irreplaceable assets. If you misdeploy the silver shields and they are surrounded, you lose decades of accumulated combat experience in a single error. Together, the phalanx and the silver shields give you the ultimate holding power. But their lack of movement creates a fatal blind spot that has to be actively protected. To protect those blind spots, you need connective tissue, units that can bridge the gap between slow, heavy infantry and fast cavalry. Alexander relied on the hypaspes, the elite shield-bearers of the army. They were positioned carefully in the battle line, sitting right between the rigid phalanx and the highly mobile cavalry forces. They function as a flexible hinge. As the army executes complex maneuvers, the hypaspists secure the vulnerable joints, preventing an enemy from slipping through any emerging gaps. Operating as a jack-of-all-trades comes with a cost. They lack the extreme durability required to survive a massed heavy infantry charge indefinitely. Moving further ahead of the main line, you need troops capable of disrupting the enemy before the heavy blocks even engage. This was the job of the Agrianes, who were deployed specifically as expert skirmishers and lethal javelin throwers. They played a key role in Alexander's early conquests by harassing enemy formations, breaking their initial cohesion, and screening the heavier forces moving up behind them. Their speed requires sacrificing all armor. If the Agrianes are pinned down in a heavy melee, they are wiped out immediately. Their flexibility comes at the direct cost of durability. Everything we have mapped out so far is preparation for the final phase of combat, which can only happen once the anvil has locked the enemy in place. That clears the way for Alexander's personal strike force, the companion cavalry. These riders were the most powerful shot cavalry of their age, designed to deliver a single, massive blow. Hitting the enemy's exposed flank at full speed, they physically shatter enemy lines and destroy their fighting morale. But shot cavalry comes with a massive tactical dependency. They are highly effective only if the phalanx has successfully pinned the enemy first. If the cavalry charges an unbroken, unpinned heavy infantry line, their forward momentum crashes against a wall. The riders are pulled down, and the unit is lost. The most devastating strike force on Earth is tactically useless without a meticulously balanced supporting system to set up their attack. Total battlefield dominance requires interdependent tactical synergy, not isolated unit power. To evaluate how these units actually function as investments, we can map their tactical return on investment on a chart measuring defensive holding power against offensive shock and mobility. Up in the high defense quadrant, we plot the phalanx and the silver shields. They maximize your holding power while sacrificing mobility. In the opposite corner, the companion cavalry provides massive mobile shock value with virtually no sustained defense. Stretching across the middle, the hypospis and agrianes provide the vital connective tissue balancing those extreme trade-offs. If your strategy is to hold and outflank, heavily invest in that immovable central core. This allows you to deploy cheaper, agile units to wrap around the edges. If you are an aggressive shock tactician, you need skirmishers to disrupt the enemy early while funneling your main capital into rapid cavalry strikes. Ultimately, you should never pour all your resources into flashy shock troops until you have built a solid foundation. True optimization is about managing the entire system, not obsessing over one individual tool.